Labas vakaras. Šiandien Lietuvoje lankosi Europos vadovų tarybos pirmininkas Costa.
Džiaugiuosi, kad galėjome tai padaryti čia.
I'm glad we were able to do this in person here in Vilnius. The most important issue today is our common security. Russia's war against Ukraine has shown that the entire European Union must prepare for defense. However, we still dedicate insufficient attention and resources to this matter. Lithuania sets an example by investing 4% of GDP in national defense this year and more than 5% next year. We expect greater EU involvement, primarily through the Security Action for Europe and European defense industry programs. Our country welcomes the European Commission's initial proposal for the multi-annual financial framework. This proposal provides for increased funding for defense and focuses on military mobility, protection of critical infrastructure, and resilience. It is a solid basis for further negotiations. The security and stability of the EU's eastern border states must remain a priority. More investment in our region is necessary to make it stronger and better prepared. This approach must include cohesion and the common agricultural policy. In strengthening resilience, specific funding must be allocated for the protection of energy infrastructure under the Connecting Europe facility. The EU is only as resilient as each of its member states. Vulnerabilities, whether gaps in critical infrastructure security or a careless approach to disinformation, create further risks. That is why we advocate strengthening resilience standards across the EU, as well as a common policy on preserving historical memory. Lithuania supports the implementation of the Pact on Migration and Asylum. We have seen how illegal migration in the hands of hostile forces becomes a tool of hybrid influence. Therefore, we call for clear rules on the return of migrants and a list of safe countries of origin. It is necessary to continue strengthening the EU's external borders using modern technologies and stricter Schengen area control. Our efforts must also focus on strengthening the European Union's global role. Today we see that Europe is fighting for all of us. While welcoming the United States' efforts to end Russia's war of aggression, we must recognize that long-term security for Ukraine and Europe can only be ensured through active EU engagement. Therefore, the European Union must expand military support, and member states must provide Ukraine with reliable security guarantees. In the near term, pressure on Russia must be increased by adopting the 19th sanctions package, targeting its oil and gas revenues, Rosatom, the banking sector, and the shadow fleet. We must also use frozen Russian assets to rebuild Ukraine. It is important to accelerate negotiations on EU membership for Ukraine and Moldova, so that this could happen in 2030. It will ensure long-term security for both Ukraine and Europe. Looking more broadly, we must assume greater responsibility for upholding the rules-based international order and firmly reject actions that violate international law. Finally, in strengthening existing and building new partnerships, we must rely more on our own track record as a reliable partner focused on long-term results. Together with our closest allies, we must limit the expansion of influence by the emerging authoritarian bloc. I am confident that future European Council meetings will help us answer many questions and make the decisions Europe needs. I thank President Costa for his efforts, and I wish him every success. I'm happy with our constructive and efficient cooperation. Thank you, Mr. President. We invite Antonio Costa now.